For today's video, I'm gonna make an oratory speech about the topic, a multi-party system will not benefit our democracy. First of all, I would like to discuss democracy, which is an example of essentially contested concept in a sense that the world means different thing to different people. Political scientists as well as politicians have not reached as well the consensus on what democracy exactly is. There are many different types of democracy being discussed and observed. However, the modern understanding of the democracy is dominated by the form of electoral democracy that has developed in the industrialized West, often called liberal democracy. In order to make my analysis more specific and clear, I would like to focus on the concept of liberal democracy, which is a system of government that includes broad rights of political participation, liberal rights, as well as social and economic rights. To begin with, let me observe the representation of constituencies' interest in multi-party system. According to Zach Gursky, liberal democracy is the modern system of representative government that embodies the principle of popular rule while protecting individual rights. I would like to point out the notion of representative government mentioned by Zach Gursky. This means that the political parties which are in the government should represent the diversified interests of that constituency. In other words, political parties and the systems they form constitute the major channels of interest aggregation and citizen input in contemporary democracies. Thus, the broader the representation or the interest aggregation, the greater is the citizen input, and hence the more democratic the government should be. Taking the multi-party system into consideration and comparing it to two-party or dominant party system, it could be agreed that in the multi-party system, constituencies have a greater probability that their interest will be represented than in any other party. In my opinion, this is because multi-party system implies having at least three parties, which may represent completely different political ideologies and may be broadly scattered along the political spectrum, whereas in two-party system, there is usually a maximum of two political ideologies being represented that may have a rather big ideological distance, which implies quite a big gap between two parties, and consequently, voters do not have their interest fully represented. Of course, the case when parties in one country have totally different ideological principles is rather extreme and unusual. However, intuitively, the greater the party fragmentation, the bigger the ideological distance between those parties, the more the constituency will benefit in terms of interest representations, which means that in theory the right of political participation should be enhanced, thus leading to more democracy. Nevertheless, theory does not always correspond with the reality and practice. Furthermore, the intuition that a greater level of party fragmentation, as well as the greater ideological distance between two parties, should enhance democracy is a sense that this leads to better representation of constituency interest, but is not an incontestable fact. This is because there are many factors beyond multi-party system which may have a considerable effect on the level of democracy in the country. So, why multi-party system will not benefit our democracy? Unlike a one-party system or two-party system, a multi-party system encourages the general constituency to form multiple distinct, officially recognized groups, generally called political parties. Each party competes for votes from the enfranchised constituents, thus allowed the vote.